modern IBM of the world to provide that service. It's an opportunity for the company. And so either that company scales up and provides that enterprise-wide. So when we say enterprise knowledge, it is domain knowledge, technology knowledge, and also knowledge of the customer's business. And this is what IBM and Oracle have. If they can just plug in that part of technology which is recently come, that's it.
But also, I think it's a willingness for the company to cannibalize its own business. That's the most important thing. You got to kill what you have to move to the next one. You cannot have both. Like my group, I'm responsible for human capital management, cloud strategies. We see it. We have to cannibalize and kill our existing product line to get people to the new one. You can't have it both ways. Therein lies the conflict of interest. Right, everybody else is simple. Any other questions or?
So, moving to the cloud is everything about bringing the cost down of services or the product?
Cost down is just one aspect to it, right? I think there's a huge, that's the incremental advantage. The real long-term advantage with the cloud in any area is if you think about, let's take a business process. For example, let's take recruiting. Interestingly enough, you can have recruiting systems, but the biggest recruiting system is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because that's a cloud solution which has got the network effect of millions and millions of people in that network. So it has actually brought down the cost of recruiting down to a fraction, because anybody can go and search and you know what to do. And it's also brought the quality of hires much higher because you have a very high pre-screening right there. So the cloud, historically, each company would have a siloed database of resumes, which meant they had their own island of stuff they would look at information. Now you can look at it at a much more bigger pool. So it's not just the cost down. So the quality is much higher, the productivity is much higher. It's just a much more radical change that is happening in industries, which were not possible without the cloud. So you got to think about the cloud gives the operational benefits, no doubt. But there is scale benefits that gives you the next frontier, which is not easy to say. It is the network effect, which is benchmarking. Everybody is on Facebook because everybody else is on Facebook. That's something that's an advantage which nobody else can do it. I mean, AWS, everybody wants to post on AWS. I mean, Azure is a poor second to AWS. It's just the first more advantage, the scale, the benchmark that AWS has on scaling up environments, knowing the usage patterns in Bangalore versus San Jose is just dramatic. What kind of workloads coming from which geographies? It's just the advantages are just, you can't put a price to the advantage. It's completely different. So,
and there was like another free premium one.
Yeah.
Has anybody done the impact on the economy itself? Because
well, I think every cloud company is losing money. Every cloud company is losing money. But the valuation of every cloud company is astronomical in the enterprise space. So the market is seeing what nobody else is seeing, which is basically saying that in the next 10 years, everybody is going to move, so you're going to make money at some economy of scale. In fact, nobody knows if AWS is profitable. They run it at what, $3 billion operation AWS. We don't know. You can read Amazon's S1 statements, you still will not know if they're making margins on it or not. Nobody knows that. Salesforce.com is not profitable, 30 billion in market capitalization. But the point is, I think people are seeing that if the whole world is going to move to the cloud, at some time the economies of scale are going to kick in and you're going to start making. So it's a function of time. And I think the next 4-5 years will prove theories. If you want to short them or you want to long them, that's your call. To make money, I mean, yeah, but it's your call.
One quick question. So the guys like us who like him and all trying to provide their product on the cloud.
I actually think they're very relevant. There's a discussion, a panel discussion as well. I mean, I think they're equally relevant. It's just that the nature of work that you're going to be doing is going to be different. You're going to move up the value stack, you're going to provide more business and domain knowledge, you're going to move to a different sphere of operation, you can build new applications. You won't be doing your traditional applications, DBA stuff anymore. You won't be writing SQL queries, you'll be doing something different. So I think you're moving up the value chain.
So let's all thank Anand for have you left, but looking at your enthusiasm and your willingness to learn, we say that thanks. Small token of appreciation, Anand. Thank you. And let's break for lunch. Q has 10. That's the good news. You can just go and grab your place.
Useless in a particular patient.
You should have just asked your Manu to send it to Manu Kuchan.
Again, he will write 2 pages of mail. He will reply back with 2 pages of mail. Then he will reject all mail. This kind of people.
So only yellow sun will be possible by IG.
And Bikram Barman out. So Bikram Barman session will happen at close to 2:50, and then after that will be Dr. Manjula's session. And defensive IP publications and articles published in technology and management. He is currently a senior manager at Yahoo India R&D. Over to you, Yogesh.
Probably good for your health. All this cloud stuff must be, well, adding calories. So at some point, somebody here is going to walk away with an apple and a guava, and we'll find out when. She's seen it. Have you? You nodded? Or were you nodding off and sleeping?
I know, but we have not seen it.
Fair enough. You've seen it. So there's a thing which they say called as be afraid, be very afraid. It's a human being turning into a fly, etc., and they essentially ask you to be afraid. And most people have seen, and for some reason most people have seen when they walk into cloud security sessions, and that's why I see Unicom having 3-4 cloud security sessions at one go. They're all afraid of something. And in my view, they're all
And state.
they're afraid. I've spoken on cloud for like 3 to 4 years now. I've had people walk up to me and say, will my job become obsolete because the cloud is coming up? And these are real people who come up after the session and have talked to me. So I've seen that occurring from 3 years back.
What is your answer?
My answer is that you should attend sessions like Unicom and become like that picture on the third, which is the Auguste Rodin's thinker. Learn, and therefore you will not be a pink slip. Where is Nitesh? He's got to give me something for this, right? Okay. The next one is they've been afraid of often being left behind. So whether you're the horseman, not the horseman, so on and so forth, they're scared of being left behind. Then they want to learn, and then they want to win. However, that's the human element which is there. But eventually what you're really afraid of is, you're afraid of sharing confidential Word docs. We all have worked on very, very confidential documents sometimes. They could be salary slips, they could be merger documents, they could be code, they could be the next 19 million company that we're building, any of that stuff. But that all sits on the cloud very often, private, public. Moving a cloud file between 2 clouds, we're afraid of that. We don't know what's happening. We are afraid of admins who have access to secure servers in the cloud, because you've heard of rogue administrators, I assume. We're afraid of rogue administrators. We're afraid of selling to a hospital. I know there are people from IBM here, lots of people from IBM, right? IBM, Ericsson. You're afraid of selling to the hospital in the US who wants to share confidential data, and if you mess it up, then you're in big trouble. What is the act which needs to be complied to if you're a hospital? Perfect. You're a wonderful audience, yeah. Looks like I should just walk away. Sorry? No, I have a reason to give the guava, not yet. Huh? So easy. Man, like this, I should have bought 1 kg guava and apple. Pehle bola hoga na? Next time, I will bring 1 kg. We are afraid of the Federal Trade Commission, and we are afraid of the Patriots Act. We are afraid of Obama having to do so many things and say things are secure. We are afraid of large companies saying that we need to be SSL compliant, whether you're on or off the cloud. We're afraid of that hash function. I will tell you why. We're afraid of doing select star from blah blah blah, because I can do select star from confidential mobile data from Oracle, Microsoft, and get all the data. Maybe you're sitting on a same virtualized server and you're multi-tenant and you missed it out, and maybe I'll get the data, but you're afraid of that. And now we come to the guava. We will not give you the guava, but I want you to think about it. We will give you the guava and the apple later. I want you to think of 2 reasons why you need to be afraid of a QR code. Okay? We will decide in the end who gets the guava and the apple. If someone tells me in between, I will give one away out. Or someone wants a guava now? Agreed?
Because you don't know what information it is going to communicate.
Great, but that's amazing, but not guava level. Okay, so good one answer. We will think. So in between, if you can keep telling guava level or apple level answers, we will give you guava and apple. In the end, if nobody says he gets it, okay, you better get better answers. Okay, so key questions to ask about cloud security. How do you secure the data? Obviously, you heard lots of people from Intel, McAfee coming and telling you that there's amazing ways of securing the data. The important thing is, how do you really secure it? Are you at what level are you securing? Are you securing it at the content level? Are you securing it at application level? Are you securing it at VM level? How do you secure the data? What do you need to protect? Are you securing data at rest, data at motion? This second one has a really good example. I was once speaking at a conference, and this guy from SBI came up to me. So someone was giving me, I don't know, the person's not in the audience at the moment, but he was telling me there's this small bank which has been mandated by RBI to move to the cloud. They moved to the cloud because RBI has told them to, and there was this guy from SBI who came up to me some few years back, probably last year, and told me that they had thought of going to the private cloud, and they didn't really understand the technology. They were told they have to have some 2-factor authentication, and they had done some SMS and all that stuff. And he said he was a bank manager of a rural bank, and he came up and told me that I have customers who walk up to me with the OTP code and show it to me and say, "Sir, what do I do with this?" And so I always say this. I mean, you need to know who your users are. Not everybody lives in Bangalore. And okay, where does your data live? Obviously, you have data centers all across. Someone told me that in Oracle they have 14 data centers in the cloud. That person not here too, but 14 data centers across. Which colo is your data located on when you're on the cloud? If you're taking a hosted solution, the colo means which set of data boxes that you're running. So when you have, what is your BCP? Where does your data live? Is it in Europe? Is it in America? Can you move Europe's data to America? No. So obviously there's a rule for that. How does it flow? What geographies? We don't want our data moving to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, whatever, so on and so forth. We want our oil to come from Iran, but not necessarily our data. You know we have a pipeline from Iran, right? Okay. What are your compliance logging needs? So we had a product in a company I used to work on for cloud-based. So I can show you, but we built a secure solution for a SaaS application. And they had certain very specific compliance logging needs which we had to comply to. So we built a product which would aggregate all the data, have that cloud data available, in order to do in certain cases what we call as a playback, which means that we would have to play back the traffic and show what would happen. Is there an SSO and identity management in place? Obviously, I'll show you one product which we built where we had integrated SSO. You have a mix of physical, virtual cloud. We had somebody talking about the virtual boxes, VMware, so on and so forth. How do you have, say, horizontal? You could have, say, horizontal VMs, vertical VMs, and have antivirus. How many of us have antivirus on our mobiles? Somebody talk about mobile before this. Okay, 3 people, 4, 5, and we're about 50 here. And we just had somebody tell us that smartphones are overtaking PCs and stuff like that. Looks like we don't care about our office data or whatever. Okay, or I'm sure we care. Okay, who pays for security? This is important in the sense of there are two things. Where is this SaaS, PaaS, IaaS? Who is responsible for what part of security? For example, if you're a SaaS vendor, what part will you pay for if there is a breach? If you're a PaaS vendor, what part? If you're an IaaS vendor, what part? So if you're, I don't know if you're in the business of either building products or building SI or solutions. In all cases, you will need to build that in. If you're an Oracle providing a complete suite, probably you're responsible for everything. If you're an Amazon, you're probably responsible for different things. If you're a Salesforce, you're responsible for different things. Then there is a transference of responsibility in terms of security, which means that what I'm responsible for and what moves. What do you react if a security breach takes place? For example, if something happens, your company if the cloud company goes bankrupt, what do you do? How do you get your data back? If there is a breach, what is the cost of that breach? How do you build that in terms of technology and in terms of so one of the ways of building in terms of technology, what I meant is probably if you have a breach, you would have a playback mechanism. There is a particular product called as, you've heard of privileged user management. Have you heard of privileged user management? So there's a privileged user management product which could potentially have, you could have passwords which could get locked in, and then you wouldn't have, okay, well, let me find a good example. Okay, how many of us know of passwords which are like admin? Root, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like everybody in the room has that password. But anyway, so in privileged user management, whether it's on a cloud, so when we had a solution where we were building a cloud security solution that integrated with that solution, we had to give a privileged user management solution where the admin password would be automatically randomly generated for those boxes in the cloud, and then you could get it, and it would have a TTL, which is a time to live. It's called privileged user management, and it can be locked or not locked. Okay, we shall give one go about, I think, now. Anyone wants to take a guess on why should we be afraid of a QR code? Second guess?
What is that?
What is a guava? It's a fruit.
Not the code you are talking about.
Oh, what is that code? It's a QR code. But what's in that code?
It could be a phishing attack.
It could be a phishing attack. Very good answer. I think it's very close to a guava. Okay, so sorry, you just lost your guava, but he's leading.
I get it.
We still have an apple. If you have two good answers, we'll give you an apple and a guava. Okay, the next big thing about security, which is big data. So we have large companies which talked about how to protect the cloud. I think someone said the problems are the same, it's just on a larger scale. I think I heard that an hour back. So the reason they're at a larger scale is because there is more data. And this tells you why you need to be afraid of the hash function. Okay. Everybody in this room has coded at some point in their life. Okay, if life it is fair, you've done any coding. So if I were to store data into a data structure on the cloud, which needs a good read access, normally what data structure would you recommend? Sorry? Linked list? Hash map? Okay. Okay, why not a linked list? I'm not taking it into them. But yeah, I mean, usually a hash is good. So a good example of storing data on a cloud could be in a key value pair. Most of it is because you have good read access, get it on quickly, you get the data back, and therefore you have to hash it quickly. And for example, without naming the companies or any of the stuff, many of these companies do have the data in the backend in a key value pair data stores. Most of these things which you get like in Yahoo, like Facebook, like Novel, like whatever, and I think they're stored as a key value pair. So from a security perspective, what is important is that you have to protect those records which store your data. That data could either be stored as a blob, which is a binary object, or it could be stored as some sort of a encrypted data, or you could even have it as plain text for anybody to select star on it. But fundamentally, it is still data which is stored in some sort of a data structure which needs to be accessible. Okay. What? Okay. So yeah. So the important thing why I'm talking in this context is that probably that record level authentication. Most of most of the products that you would look at in terms of, in the end, they're storing data in some sort of a field in the file. It could, in a database, you would have a record, you would have fields. You could potentially have all your passwords in password.txt, but well, that's your choice. But in the end, you would have some sort of record level authentication. So there is an example where I worked on where we moved data from a non-cloud based application to a cloud based application. One of the important things that we had to look for is in terms of authenticating onto the record. We moved from from an SQL-like database to a NoSQL-like database. So that kind of example. Obviously, distributed hash stores where you distribute your data and store, because you can't store it in a one-level hash, right? You will have an n-level hash, which will be there. Algorithmic lookups, time and space complexity. This is, the reason I bring some of these up is because often we are so, when we talk of the cloud, we're often so used to having it as a service, we don't think in terms of the back end of the secure of what is stored, which is in the end bits and bytes and what is getting stored and how it's getting stored and how you're building. So if you're in the part of, and I was told most of the people here are from companies where you're building cloud products rather than system integrating cloud products. So in that sense, when you're doing it as an engineer or even somebody who is influencing an engineer, you should be talking in terms of security and efficiency of the algorithm, which would be there. So some of the things could be in terms of time, space, could be in terms of key sizes. Okay. What is the time complexity? Why did we choose a hash for storing into a cloud?
Order of one.
Order of one. So, thank you. I would love to have you interview with me. But you've answered more than that. Maybe you would love to have me interview with him, the way he's looking at me. I'm scared of him. Anyway, so, but yeah, all said and done, the fact is that you would not want to have an appropriate algorithm. Semantics data. So in the cloud, obviously, you would have to have appropriate real-time, near real-time, location, storage, safety. So I will show you one picture of another of this product we had done on. So this is a product which we had built at some time. This is from. So having said that, I do not represent Novell. I have no affiliations towards Novell. I'm not selling this product. It's just something I worked on. This is from a public slide that I picked off this. Okay, so this is the product which we had built. So when I show you some of the concepts, you'll get. So this is from a SaaS product we had built. This has where we had users who needed to be authenticated to a SaaS kind of platform. There was an identity. Novell was being the identity provider. It had an authentication service. They did not want to send the enterprise credentials off, so they had it on the left. And you had somebody like a SaaS application which wanted to basically go ahead and rely on the credentials. So you had one identity credential. So a couple of ways. So this is where when I was talking to you about, like, say, privilege. So you would have to put an appropriate privilege mechanism here. You would need to have an appropriate authentication mechanism there, which is a SaaS, and you would have, let's say, some sort of a SAML mechanism, which is because that's a private cloud they had asked for. At the same time, they wanted it linked with the enterprise user store, which is their own. It could be cloud or non-cloud based. So the concept that from a security perspective we had to take care was that they had tokens and applications which they wanted to still run here, have that credential, yet be able to do a single sign-on to a relying party right across the three things. So we had an identity system there. We built a web interface here which would appropriately be able to handle all the three parts. Yet we had to have a appropriate handshake with that SaaS application. So if you have some cases like this, well, you should consider building your applications here. This is of course not absolutely like, let's say, a Amazon which gives you your public cloud kind of thing. This was a private cloud, and from a security perspective, we had to implement many of the concepts that I had to talk about. I would talk about.
These are
that back into this picture, which is kind of generic part of that. You can look at that left side, which was that SaaS thing which I showed you of that. In our case, we were companies like, I think, Salesforce and some of the other companies which came back and told us. I don't want to talk too much about the specifics, but And they said that we would have to have an appropriate strong authentication, multiple device, and have an access, whether it's through mobile or through desktop. And then they wanted to have data right across the different clouds. In that case, the public cloud wasn't there. It was the private cloud and an enterprise kind of thing. So people had to be able to log on there. They had to be able to log on to authenticate with this, and that would be the relying party. So obviously, if you had strong authentication, you could use different options like, say, mobile-based, OTP-based, smart card-based. There are companies like Zomato which give you smart card-based solutions, which you could potentially have a second factor authentication. You could have a second factor authentication not just there, but here also on the cloud, which is on the box. So there are certain cases where you could have, say, it will encrypt your drive based on certain hardware, and there will be a password which will be stored as part of that drive. So that is another way of doing that. And then when you come in, there is the input-output security which is there. What is coming in? You have the routers, you have the appropriate firewalls which are there. In our case, if you remember, you saw a firewall. There was a firewall between the cloud and also the enterprise, in which case, and they told us that we couldn't send some part of the credentials out from here to there. We could tokenize it and then send it, because there's a cloud and non-cloud. So the message I'm trying to drive is that often people are not going to, as I said over the years, that people are not going to move to the cloud overnight and just say I'm non-cloud and tomorrow I want to be the cloud, because when I talk to somebody, they're saying it's for the smaller and SMB kind of situations, mostly they move. I think someone made a comment. In one of the McAfee videos I heard that, saying that they started with saying that we expect the small businesses to move, and then the big ones may take more time, they want to go to the private cloud. So they're going to have a mix and match kind of solutions that will be there. In which case you will need these kind of things. So then of course SSO is very important to prevent the password thing, and they're going to need passwords right across. And SSO does not mean, obviously, I mean, we all understand what is SSO, right? SSO doesn't mean having the same password across for all applications. It means that you have appropriate level of abstraction which allows you access. For example, if I have, like I was telling you about that doc, which, I mean, you have to have content level access and you have to have access at different levels and have the same passwords. Privileged access, I told you. RM minus RF or a delete, does it really delete? Is always your doubt, right? I mean, did it really delete, or do I have a smart IT guy who can come and get it back? He can actually, right? So, I mean, technically the ways of doing it is what is called as degaussing, right? You could degauss your hard drive and then you would probably not get it back. So fundamentally, he was giving two sides of the story, and I love it because there's a struct going, and at the other side you're talking about degaussing. So talks about wipeout encryption, and the other scenario, which is the bankrupt cloud provider. What do you do when something happens like that? We don't expect our banks to go bankrupt, right? That ICICI suddenly says, log in and says, sorry, all your money is gone. But cloud providers have not reached that state yet. Logging, auditing, compliance I talked about. Multi-tenancy, I think people who speak about virtualization can speak very well. They need to have data appropriate co-location, VM separation, all that kind of stuff. Secure data and backup. This is another important part of cloud which I've always liked, is in terms of, we often think of the primary storage, which is, you could look something, you stored it in a particular place, but let's say you stored it in your particular colo, which is, let's say, on the west side of US or whatever, in Bangalore. Maybe your secondary storage is, I have to pick is Afghanistan or whatever. Hopefully not, but there is a backup location which is there. But from a cloud perspective, there's another interesting angle which I have often heard people talk about, which is called as physical security. People will often tell you about logical security, right? Which is, I mean, I can encrypt my algorithm, I can put a hash function, I can put whatever on my thing, but there is physical security which could happen. So just as the truck could move, somebody could come in and hammer all your boxes and bring it down if you don't have appropriate BCP in place and things like that. So there was this another interesting article I had read where they talk about a thing saying that how you vet even where, because many of these cloud companies actually outsource where they store